my new groups, but also we will record this, and that's in part. So hopefully we will share this and get it out to other people as they join the Boston Metro chapter and the Southcoast chapter, so we can start to divide that. So we'll keep this recording, I think, as a resource for everyone going forward. Amanda, welcome. Thank you for joining. We're just getting started now. This is perfect. Just so everyone's aware, we are recording this. So if you are uncomfortable with that, I guess you can turn your camera off. But otherwise, we'd love to see you. So please keep it on. Let's see. So my name's Larry Yu. I'm from the Boston Metro chapter. Our chapter dates back to 2017 at the beginning of the chapter's program, and it has grown to, I think, over 500 people now on our list. From throughout the world, really, but mostly throughout Massachusetts, and we've sort of captured a lot of people across the state, and that's been powerful for things statewide, but it's less useful for more municipal or regional specific issues, and it sort of dilutes power a little bit. And so I think what we're trying to do is see whether there's interest in having people start chapters more in pockets around the state to help sort of grow our power in different ways. So with that said, maybe we can just do a quick round robin, introduce yourself, and maybe share your hometown so we can start to see where people are from.
I'll go first. So I'm also presenting tonight. My name's Laura Gardner, and I'm the chair of the Massachusetts Southcoast Chapter. Our chapter started in 2019 after 3 of our first members attended the 2019 training in Minneapolis. And I'll share more about that in a little bit. But I am a librarian in Dartmouth, Mass, and I live in Fairhaven. And I'm excited about this because I think there's so much we can do if we have more chapters in Massachusetts and we can work as a coalition. We can work all together on state issues, and then we can do our own thing on regional issues. I'm seeing this in the New York State chapters program because I convinced my mom to start a chapter in Western New York, and she is the chapter chair of the Western New York chapter. And they have 12 chapters in New York State. And so they have these coalition calls on Saturday mornings where they come up with priorities for the state, but then they also have local issues that each chapter is working on. And it's just really powerful what they're doing. And Tim Guinea is a big part of that, leading that coalition. But that's why I'm excited to maybe see something like that here in Mass. So that's me. And I don't know who wants to introduce themselves next. Maybe Chris?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Gaynor. Use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Northeast Regional Organizer here with the Climate Reality Project. What that means is, like, I'm your point person for, like, the Northeast, which includes, like, Massachusetts. So when it comes to, like the Boston Metro chapter, the Massachusetts Southcoast chapter, I'm the person that the chapter leaders would come to have conversation in regards to, like, whatever resources that need to be, like, given to distribute to membership, whatever support might be needed on campaigns or initiatives, or just to, like, bounce off ideas to how to, like, do things like this, like build coalitions. And, like, I'm a huge advocate for, like, the coalition building, because, like, yes, we have, like, the New York State coalition, but we also have, like, a Pennsylvania state coalition that exists. Beyond the Northeast, there's, like, the Texas coalition that exists, the Tennessee coalition that exists, California. The coalition and the chapter sizes are big enough, like, you're able to, like, have these wonderful coalitions for just incredible collaborative spaces, because it's also allowing for like membership and, like, folks in chapters to address the issues that are, like, local to them and discuss it across, like, the state to see how can we all engage for this thing that's really important to us. But happy to be here, y'all. I'm here for any questions, so thank you so much. I'm not sure how to pass this along, but I'll just pass it to Tristan because I know Tristan.
Thanks, Chris. So yeah, Tristan de Cande. I used to be in New Hampshire or, like, Texas, and now I'm in Boston, and I'm actually going to go to California. So I'm kind of in transit between chapters. But I restarted in Dallas back in 2018. 2 years there in Dallas, and then went to New Hampshire, where I started a new chapter with other friends after the first virtual training that happened in 2020 during the COVID-19. So I always wanted to do one of the trainings. I wanted to go to Minneapolis. I think there was one like in Houston that was supposed to happen or something like this. And I never got to assist any of them. And I think they canceled the one actually that was supposed to be in Houston. So ultimately I was happy that there was a virtual training. And after that, there was nothing in New Hampshire. There was one in Vermont. There was one in Massachusetts, some in Maine, etc., but nothing in New Hampshire. So that's when we started doing something there. But then I moved here, so now I'm closer to the Boston one, and soon going to California. So yeah, that's and I'm in Somerville right now. Exactly.
Like to pick someone to go next, Tristan?
I'm gonna choose, like from the order that I see people. I'm going to ask Judy to introduce herself.
Hello, thank you, Tristan. I'm Judy Duveen. I've actually only been in Massachusetts 1 year. This is almost my 1 year anniversary from moving to this house. And I used to be in New York, and I was pretty active in the New York chapter. We partnered with the Sierra Club and did a lot of, and in Nassau County on Long Island, and did a lot of joint presentations about, energy and things like that. I was trained in Atlanta in 2019, and I've been in Laura's chapter for months, right? And partly because of COVID, I just participated in a few things really, and my daughter had a baby, and it's been a complicated year for me. I'm still moving in basically, but I do want to be active in this, and I've been trying to, get involved more so than I have. I really think local chapters are the way to go. New York did have a great thing. We used to have an annual meeting on site where all the chapters came together, and it was like a 3-day retreat, which was excellent. And then when COVID came, it was like on Zoom, but the great presentations, everybody was very active. It was really wonderful. So, I applaud Laura and her mother for participating in that, but it was a wonderful way of getting and stimulating people. There were lots of great ideas. I really would like to figure out how to do this. I'm in East Bridgewater, which is on the South Shore. I've sort of been between the two chapters, but I've been more active with Laura in the South Coast chapter, right? Okay, that's me. So I suggest, Dennis, do you want to go on next?
That's a good choice. Last one in the list. I was trained last year in the virtual training during COVID. And I live in Andover, Massachusetts. As I mentioned that I was a mentor this time, and been a member of Boston for some time, and looking forward to what I can hear tonight. A couple of members of the team I was working with who were trained this year are actually living in our area, one in Lawrence and one in Andover. So there's 3 of us anyway who have been trained that I'm aware of in our area. And there are probably others that may be interested in exploring this idea. But I just wanted to come to get some information. This has been a very rough year for us. We lost a lot of relatives. Some directly to COVID, some indirectly to COVID because of being in nursing homes and being isolated for months and months and months, and then passing away, and other things that happened this year. So it's been a tough year for a lot of reasons. But I've been following the issue of climate change for many years, and I just see that, with COP26, we have been coming to this stage in the history of climate change since the beginning of all that I've been reading, and I'm really concerned. And I think we need to do whatever we can to try to continue to capitalize on the positive things that are going on at COP26, and hope that we can continue to ratchet up on this momentum so that we can achieve some of the things that don't appear within reach right now, so that my 5 grandsons and my children in the future can live a better life than right now looks possible, yeah, based on the science I've read and the things I've been reading along over the last couple of months. So I'm optimistic that we can do that.
Dennis, I'm really sorry to hear that. Yeah, it's been a tough year. Would you like to pick someone to go next, though?
I don't see anyone else on my screen. Are there more? Do I click this button up here?
I will go ahead and just,
okay, I do see
Amanda.
I clicked Sherry McIntosh.
Oh, okay, Sherry.
Yeah.
But Sherry is on mute.
Oh.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Sherry, you're on mute.
Unmute. Okay. I missed the first 2 minutes and I didn't know, it looks like you're introducing yourself, and what other information were you asked to go over?
I think the most important information is just introduce yourself and your and what town you live in, because that's kind of important for
yeah. I went through the training, I guess the first virtual training, and as you said, it's really an experience, and I learned a lot. And I'm really excited about the new Boston mayor, because I think that there's a possibility that there's going to be more housing that's developed that's, you know, not substandard and that type of thing. And she seems just really proactive. So I live in Arlington, and I guess I've been a member for a long time, but like you said, because of COVID, I've been kind of floating around without doing anything specific. So I will get involved when we have something. Yeah.
Amanda, I think it is your honor now.
Oh, thanks. Well, I am the complete newbie of the group. I just finished the training in October. And so I was trying to find some way to join something local, but it didn't seem like there was much. It was actually really hard to find that there was even a Boston and a South Shore one. And if this is the group tonight, then, you know, clearly maybe it's Sherry and me, but I'm in Lincoln, which is near Concord, Waltham, Lexington, you know, Metro West. So, I mean, I was so excited about doing the training, but I have to say, I feel like there isn't, unless, you know, solo things, there's not a lot of way of connecting. And if this is the group tonight, most of you are either already super involved in some shape or form, or you live far away from me. So I'm feeling a little discouraged, I got to admit. But you know, I thought part of what tonight would be is that the Boston and South Shore people would urge a bunch of other folks to start a new chapter. So
that was definitely our goal, and it still is. Like, we're going to record this. It is being recorded, and we'll send it out to all of the Boston chapter, which includes a lot of people from Metro West. And so ideally, some of those people in Metro West, and Larry can pull out those names and target certain people as well, with your contact info and Sherry's. And so that is our goal, is to connect people so that more chapters can form. Anything you want to add, Larry?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we just had a chapter meeting on Tuesday as well, and I'm not sure your name has been added to our chapter list yet, so you will soon get a few more mailings from us about chapter events. So stay tuned, I think. Yeah.
So I started a chapter just 2 years ago, so I have some slides to share what that experience was like. And feel free to ask some questions at the end if you have some. It's not very long, it's not much, but I did want to share what it was like to start a chapter and it was easy is the spoiler. So, so I attended the 2019 conference in Minneapolis. I'm not in this picture. I don't know if I was in the bathroom or what was going on, but right here, this is Dan, this is Bruce, and this is Alexandria. And the three of them plus me and one other person was the start of our chapter. You only need 5 people to start a chapter. And only one of those people technically has to be a climate reality leader. The chair does need to be a climate reality leader. So to start out, actually, Alexandria and I were co-chairs. And so at this conference, we were like, wait a minute, the only chapter in Massachusetts is Boston. That doesn't make any sense. Compared to the South Coast, Boston might as well be the moon. Like, I only go to Boston a few times a year. Like, I drive past it sometimes, but like actually going to Boston, like almost never happens. So we decided at the conference that we were gonna start our own chapter. And Alexandria worked at the time in the New Bedford Parks and Rec. Dan and I work at a middle school together, and Bruce actually lives in Vermont, but was in Fall River a lot for work at that time. And then we had one more person join us, Mary Lou, who runs a local beach cleanup organization. She and I have been friends for years, and she does a lot of work related to environmental issues. And so I asked her, and that made our 5. And our chapter started with a bang. We had a meeting in September, we had a meeting in October, and then this, I believe, is our meeting in either November or December of 2020, actually. No, 2019. Yeah, 2019. So this is just before COVID. So this is like, COVID is probably starting over in Asia and it's coming, but it's not here yet. And so we're all in person. And we had this enormous meeting where we invited the Sunrise Southcoast chapter of UMass Dartmouth to come to our meeting and talk to us about the work that they were doing, and then to try and figure out ways that we could collaborate together to make April 2020 the biggest, best Earth Day ever, which then was poof, non-existent because of COVID. But we had big plans. So it was really exciting. We had all of our meetings in the UU Church of Fairhaven, which is a gorgeous building where I'm a member, and they've been wonderful in giving us space to have our meetings. When we had in-person meetings, we had snacks, we had drinks, it was incredible. And then COVID hit, of course. But starting out really was just exciting. You know, we started with these 5 members, and then from there, we emailed just about everyone we knew who was involved in environmental issues. We got people on our email list from my church. We got people who were from my school that I taught at, like former students of mine who I knew would be interested, plus their parents. Alexandria, you know, blasted out to people she knew from this thing called Science Cafe, which was like a cafe series in downtown New Bedford where they have a presenter and then they drink beer at a bar. And so we tried to find people who weren't climate reality leaders. Again, still in this group, we only have 3 climate reality leaders out of this group. The following year in 2020, we had 10 more of these people do the virtual training and get trained to be climate reality leaders, but we didn't have that many in the South Coast to begin with. We did meet a couple more. This is former Mayor John Bullard of New Bedford, and he was already a climate reality leader. He was trained in the early 2000s, like 2006 or 7 or something like that. And so he was another one who happened to be on the South Coast, but otherwise there was pretty much no one. So they don't have to be climate reality leaders to be in your group. So a couple things that are required to be a chapter. You do need to do an annual strategic plan, and you can always look at plans from other chapters for inspiration. So this was our first strategic plan. We were like, we're gonna do all these public events. We're going to have letter writing and petition campaigns in person at these public events. We're going to do public in-person presentations. Like, all of this fell apart, of course, as soon as COVID hit. But this was our first strategic plan and our 2020 goals. You also have to complete a monthly report for Climate Reality, and you should have one person from your chapter attend the monthly leadership calls, which are sometimes national and sometimes regional, and they're always really helpful. And you also have to have conversations with Chris on a regular basis to check in with Chris, which is fun. So these are the things that we've moved on to since the pandemic. So after the pandemic hit, we pivoted to doing the 100% Committed campaign, which is an amazing campaign, works great at the local level. You're going to businesses and organizations and asking them if they will commit to be 100% clean by 2030. And we now have 18 businesses and organizations. We got our church that was hosting us. We got the gym that I go to. We got my hair salon. You know, we got my favorite restaurant. We got this regenerative farm. We got the realty company that has both their owners go to our church. A lot of these are actually church related. So that was a really great campaign. It works great virtually. You can just email people and ask them, call them on the phone and ask them, and then they can sign it and take a picture of it and send it back and stuff like that. You don't even have to see each other in person if you don't want to. And then as COVID went on, this June, we actually did this campaign, which was a Break Free from Plastic campaign. And that's because our members, one of them who was our founding member, Mary Lou, again, the beach cleanups, she's gotten really involved in plastic and understanding how plastic is connected to the climate crisis, because emissions are created at every level of production of plastic, and plastic is plan B for fossil fuel companies. They're increasing single-use plastic production. So we did a brand audit with Break Free from Plastic and counted up what companies the plastic was actually from, and then mailed it back. We had student speakers. These are our student speakers in this picture, including my kid right here, and this guy from Sunrise South Coast, and two of my students. And that was amazing. And it was great to be in person outside doing something local. And we had an awesome time. We're doing our next brand audit this Sunday. This will be our third brand audit. Other local campaigns we've worked on a 100% renewable opt-up program. And this is because we have a local aggregation program that includes 25 towns across the South Coast. And we were trying to encourage people, like households and businesses within those towns, to opt up to 100% renewable electricity through the aggregation program. So we're trying to get the word out about that. We were also trying to convince each town to opt up by just 10% for the whole town. And we did manage to convince the town that I live in, Fairhaven, to opt up by 10% as a default rate, which is pretty cool. And now actually every business and household that opts up to 100% in our town, it's tax deductible, the difference that they pay on their electricity now, because the town opted up. So that's been helping our 100% Committed campaign, because we can convince businesses in town to opt up more readily now that we have that 10% default and that tax rebate. And then we've also been working on no idling campaign, because we have a bridge in between Fairhaven and New Bedford, and people stop on the bridge waiting for the bridge, and they end up just sitting there with their car running. So we have these signs that we've been putting up, and we've been working to try and convince the city councilors of New Bedford to put in permanent signage to remind people that idling is against the law and bad for your car, and a waste of gas and money and all of that. So we're always talking about these kinds of things when we do tabling events, which we've done a lot of as well at festivals, and we've got a wellness fest coming up this 2 Saturdays from now that we're going to be tabling at. So these are the kinds of things that we talk at when we're there. We've also done a couple of webinars. We did one on plastic right around the time of our first brand audit. We also did one where we learned more about the Green Future Act in Massachusetts, which if you haven't learned about it, I really encourage you to go find out more about it, and then contact your state rep and tell them to please co-sponsor it. We have 72, I believe, co-sponsors so far in the House, and we really need more. So that's something that we've been working on as a chapter with Carrie from Climate Exchange. And I'll put these resources in the chat, but there is a link on Climate Reality's website for how to sign up, how to create a new chapter. And I also highly encourage joining Mass Power Forward. It's a coalition of climate-related groups in the state of Massachusetts. But my experience with starting a chapter was it's really not hard. You don't need them to all be climate reality leaders, which is a huge thing to remember. Like, you really only need one. And something I didn't mention, but I feel like it goes without saying, but it probably doesn't. You get so many resources from climate reality, you know, like the 100% committed campaign, there's a whole toolkit on how to do it. And the resources you can get from having monthly calls with Chris and having the leadership calls, you know, it's not like if you start an environmental group without all of that, it would be a lot harder. And you have a lot of information and help available to you because you're starting a climate reality chapter. And then the connections you can make within climate reality are really huge too. I did the All We Can Save book group in the spring with other climate reality leaders, and Chris was our facilitator. And I've really developed a strong friendship with one of the other people from that group, Malika Yates, who chairs the Delaware chapter. And we've started doing monthly calls. We just started this month, but we're really excited about it, where we kind of just chat about things we're experiencing in our chapter and ideas we're having, and, you know, trying to support each other. And, you know, of course, I do the same thing with my mom, who chairs the Western New York chapter. So it's nice to be able to bounce ideas off of other people who chair chapters and are experiencing similar sorts of things. So I'll stop there, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But I'm sure Chris and Larry have other things to share as well.
I was actually going to invite Tristan to also talk about his experience starting a chapter in New Hampshire, and, you know, hopefully it was just as easy as Laura described it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I could describe a bit, but yeah, it was definitely easy. But it was like just like finding, as we were saying, like these 5 people, right? So I think what happened is that when I was in Dallas, like the group was like very well already organized, and there was like one chapter really close to where I was, so very easy for me to get involved with people close by. But when I came to New Hampshire, there was, you know, after doing the whole training, I looked left and right, and there was none that was close by. So as I said, like there was one in Maine, one in maybe 2 actually in Vermont, and some in Massachusetts, but none in New Hampshire. So some of us were like pretty pumped up, but we were like, oh, how do we do something at our scale? And our problem was that we were in different cities of New Hampshire. So some were in Exeter, some were in Portsmouth, some were in Nashua, some were in Manchester, some other were in Concord. And we're like, apparently we're supposed to find like one city to do it. But as it's COVID time, everybody is online. We can't go out, we can't meet anybody. So why not just doing something for New Hampshire? And what our action is going to be is not too much like on a city council, or at least like maybe like from all our city councils, but mostly on the state level, and try to see like how do we influence from then on. And so yeah, we got like just like 5 people interested from this virtual these virtual trainings to get engaged there. And out of the 5, to be fair, like 3 stayed, and they continue apparently still like to today to do it, and 2 have been replaced with other people later on. But, you know, it doesn't matter if actually, you know, like you can start with some people and then like reorganize later. So that was kind of one of the learning there that we saw. So some of them, they were very pumped up, but they decided, well, like there's you know, there's other ways for them to get involved. And some others that were kind of like hesitating at the start and were just like passive decided to become active. So it kind of like played out in the end like rather well. But we stayed like a very small chapter for some time, because I think it was like 2020 when it started, and we never were able to meet each other. So I think it's very important that actually at least once in, you know, like in a while, to actually meet each other so that you can find someone to talk to about the things that you have in mind, and try to organize things, because otherwise, if it's only virtual, it gets hard, and people have other priorities, and like the bonds that you create are too superficial. But I have to say, like the three other people that were here at the start of the training, I'm still like in personal contact still with them, even though like I moved. So it's and they invite me here and there, like to their activities. So I have to say, like, it's still you know, like these personal connections are important, and I'm happy to have started that, because these are going to continue in the long term. So and for us, our, you know, like the mission that was kind of like the biggest thing that we were looking at the start is what do we want to focus on? Because obviously there's too many things. We are truly, I mean, there's only like 10, 15 of us like to start with. So what do we want to focus on? And definitely the break free from plastic. And we had like 3-4 people who were really interested and very passionate about the plastic pollution. And they still are, and they were like involved in like different other organizations that are targeting that problem. So it was kind of easy to focus on that, because at that moment we can leverage these connections and leverage this passion towards the more global mission of the climate reality, that is to reduce the carbon footprint of any activities that are around there. So obviously New Hampshire was a bit disheartening, because it's much more conservative than I thought it would be, especially at the state level. So there's quite a lot of lobbies, and definitely like the you know, the political background is relatively conflicting with what like a sustainability a mindset would be. But still, we could see that there are some sponsors and some champions in the regions that we could leverage, and definitely getting more networked with some of these like champions, and try to see how we can help, etc. So you know, like I'm very impressed with what Laura has been able to achieve with her team in such a short amount of time. I have to say that we had like a couple of you know, pickup of trash, like the cleanups that are rivers, etc. We had some of these like break free from plastic, and 24 hours of reality, etc. that we organized. But I really liked like what you're looking at with the all we can save and the idling of the cars and stuff. It's very concrete, small steps that are very, very important that you can do at the local level. But anyway, like long story short is that they, like the climate reality wasn't so enthused with the fact that we would create like a state level a chapter, but ultimately they were like, okay, that makes sense, that if we're all doing it anyway online, like we are doing it right now, we can't get organized and have some type of action. So as long as people are motivated and want to do it, I guess like there's always a way to find like a right approach to the problem that we are looking at. And Chris was definitely helping as well in order to motivate the troops, and he helps as well to create that coalition, and that helps in order to get ideas from other chapters, etc. So yeah. Is there one aspect in particular that you'd be interested about this process of creating the chapter?
I was actually going to invite Chris maybe to speak about, you know, I mean, I think Laura and Tristan just described like get 5 people together and you could start a chapter. And so can you comment on that? Is it really that easy?
The answer is yes. And like that's what's like really cool about it. It's kind of like honestly it's just trying to find like you as like you are the trained climate leader, you are like now entering a space, and they're like, well, looking around, there's no one. They're like, where like where's my chapter? Where's like my group of people? And like that is where it becomes valuable to kind of like see who is close by to me to create something, right? And because the chapter's program as a whole is only about like 3 years old, there is that gap that we do recognize to where like Amanda, you were describing, like you came into it after the training and you're seeing just like, where are my people, right? And we do recognize that, and that's so hard, but this is where like these spaces really important, to where we can connect you with people like Laura, Larry, or Tristan, to where, hey, those people you're looking for, they're all here, and we're trying to put them over here. So that this is where these conversations are extremely valuable. And like, into like what even like Laura had pointed to, like for the first meeting, like I really appreciate the fact that like you had invited Sunrise, because it's not just climate reality, right? When we're trying to build like the critical mass, we're not trying to say critical mass of climate reality leaders, like that's, we're not trying to silo here. We're trying to like bring in everyone that we can find within our community. So when you are put in that position to where you might be like one of maybe a few climate leaders, you can still build relationships with the groups that exist on the ground, and you can still like have events with these folks. You can still plan meetings with these folks. So the idea of like building a chapter, you can bring some of those folks in and just like, hey, I need about like 2 of you, and I can build this chapter so we have like a ground base for this particular area. So it's all, to me, what like building a chapter, like what I've found and like having so many conversations with folks, is just like you're building a place to network, you're building a place to address concerns from your community, you're building a place where you can apply the things that you've learned from the training. So I think I can pause there for any other questions that may have, but like honestly, like building a chapter is like not as hard as like it sounds, but it is, even if it seems difficult, the supports are there for you. And I do my best to try to like reach you where you're at, and you have a network of climate leaders who will do the same. So I will pause there.
Super, I think we'll just open it up for questions.
If I may add something, one of the hardest things from my point of view was 2 things. One, to find who wants, like to do what, because we all want to do something, and we're like, okay, but like who wants to be the chair, who wants to, what are the roles, and like kind of like defining these roles, and like trying to split, like the load, and trying to understand like who's going to be helpful for what, depending on their background, was kind of like the thing where we're all looking at each other being like, you could do it, oh no, you could do it. And but so, like to step in and say like, well, actually I would be interested in that, and not being afraid of saying like what you're interested in. And the second thing was just to find a time for everybody to meet, and nobody is going to be able to do like all of them, or like it's always hard to find like something that is corresponding for everybody to be able to meet and see each other on a regular basis. But ultimately there are some tools to do that, and like trying to do like sometimes like on one day, sometimes on the other, in order to have like sometimes some people, sometimes on the other. So just the scheduling was kind of one of the hard parts, but apart from that, like the rest seems to be like just pleasure.
And just to piggyback on that, you do have to have elections every year. The first time we had elections, it was like nobody really wanted to run for anything, and we had to like kind of talk to people ahead of time and make sure they were interested. Then we got new people, and suddenly we had people interested in different positions, like being in charge of communications, and being like we have youth members on our leadership team as well, like high schoolers have always been a part of our chapter. So that's been an important thing for us. And we've now got a leadership team of about 5 or 6 people. And not everyone always comes to leadership meetings. And certainly with COVID, we've had people dip in and dip out of participation more than I think would happen without everything that's going on. But it's okay. Other people are picking up the slack, and we're figuring it
out. Chris, I have a question. What's the argument for a climate reality leader approaching another group that's already an established environmental group in the community? We want to set up a new group called Climate Reality Chapter. What's the argument for that? Why don't we just join the established environmental group? And I mean, from their point of view, that seems a lot more sensible than us setting up our own group for a small number of people, at least initially. what's the argument?
I love that question, Dennis. And my argument to that is you, as the person, the climate leader going to that established group, is just like, how can I help you? Like, it's more of like, if it's already in a space, or like rather you're like going into this like established group to where like you're poaching people, and it's not the intention in any way, shape, or form. If there's already an established group, then there can be there can be that conversation, right? Of just like, okay, like, we, like, these leaders that we have come, we are not going to start a chapter right now because this already exists. We are not going to compete with these folks. However, we will help, and we will have our own like climate leader like meeting space to have conversation, how we collaborate with the folks that's already established in that area, and in establishing those relationships, right? Like, ideally, as like, you know, time goes on, as like more members go through trainings, and like the area is like, okay, now we have a little bit more climate leaders, then conversation can be had of just, okay, we have climate reality like activities we would really like to focus on, and now we can, because we have that membership, as well as the relationship that we had fostered with the folks that we had come to approach in the initially. It said, how can we help you? So now you have like that commitment, and you foster those relationships. So rather than like competing, like, hey, come to ours because we have to do these things, it's like, hey, how can we help in this way? So for when we have time to where we need help, we can ask that same allyship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Dennis, I can share that that has played out exactly like that. I mean, I think the climate reality name has some resonance, so people will want to be in allyship with you, and we participate in Mass Power Forward with Laura as well, but also in another coalition called Gas Leaks Allies, and one of our members is deeply involved in Gas Leaks Allies, and they appreciate having climate realities involvement there, and we can, like, she works in that coalition, working towards state level legislation and state level action, and we're able to lend support of the whole chapter when needed for that work. So I think that kind of engagement is appreciated. I'll also share, I was nervous about that. I was speaking with one of the Extinction Rebellion Boston leads. I had a one-on-one with him, and I was kind of like, trying to understand our positionality relative to him. I mean, Extinction Rebellion does direct actions and is out in front of a lot of people's faces, right? And he's like, no, I love your theory of change. I love what climate reality is doing, because it's just very complementary. And I know that I've gone to some of his events, and I know that if we asked him, they would come to ours as well. So.
I guess I have a question. So having been so recently through the training, I'm really not super familiar even with the website, but I think for people, particularly people my age, who just feel like, oh, I want to get involved somehow, some way, the biggest question is sort of like, what can I do? What is the thing I can do? And so I've heard anything from the teeniest, like litter pickup, which is, a wonderful small scale thing you can do to, enabling or working for full-on legislation. Is there a place on the Climate Reality website that sort of gives a giant list of the kinds of campaigns and projects that climate reality leaders do and have done, and examples, sort of?
I guess that's for me, because the answer to that is yes. Yeah, on our website we do have like the campaigns that are listed from like 100% committed, Our Climate Moment, like Inconvenient Youth for youth to like plug in, but like to your question of just like, as a newly trained like climate leader, how to get involved, like one of like the acts of leadership that like we would recommend as the first thing you do, join a chapter, right? Because like within the join a chapter model, like it's more of the chapter already has in mind what the campaigns like that like the state or that area is interested in. But like, again, we're like going back to your own concern of just, I'm already like, let's say I do join the chapter, but the chapter's so far away, I don't have like the specific like ideas in mind. This is where, what would you do if like, because I think of it in this way, because the chapters program is so young, is like, what would you do if the chapter wasn't there as a climate leader? And like, you would do what I've seen like Larry do, what Laura's done, and what Tristan has done, is like have conversation with the community members around, like how Laura's done with the church, and like has gotten to be able to people to come on board to where this is how like you, I guess, build that coalition, or yeah, build those relationships to where, hey, I've been talking to y'all for X amount of time. Would you be interested in joining me in like the next like US like or whatever virtual training or actual in-person training? I would love to have you there. Like and you know, you come back and then there you go. You have like newly trained leaders and you potentially have a chapter. So my suggestion, like from the regional organizer perspective, is like your first I guess form of activism is to just talk about what you're interested in your community to your community members and see, you know, like what would they be interested in, like joining a Southcoast meeting or a Boston meeting to hear folks out, and then say like, hey, this is interesting, let's start a chapter.
Okay. Yeah, and I put our chapter website in the chat, and you know, you don't have to be in our region to join our chapter, because all of our chapter meetings are virtual. So Judy comes to our meetings, you know, virtually, and you know, we have other people who come who aren't necessarily that close to us, but yeah, having lots of conversations. Like whenever I get stuck and I'm like, I don't know what the next thing is to do, and I'm stuck on this 100% committed person and they're still thinking about it, and I don't know what to do for this and I don't know what to do for that, I just try to think of who's the next person I can talk to. Like I've had conversations with people ranging from someone from the Sierra Club, someone from Climate Exchange, to, you know, a regenerative agriculture farmer that I knew. Somebody in my church, like my minister, who I think is really smart, just like, you know, just people where you can say, this is what I'm thinking about. These are the things I'm upset about. What do you think? And just having those conversations out loud somehow, for me at least, helps me figure out what a possible next step is. And, you know, something that we can try next. So, and then, you know, once you have a chapter, just again, talking to people and figuring out where can we put a table so that we can be in the public. Like when we had our table at Kids Fest, we had a raffle for a kid's book about climate crisis and a reusable pack of utensils. And so we got people's emails for the raffle, and now they're on our email list for our chapter. We also gave out reusable straws, and we had this bookmark that had our chapter website on it. And we had a big white parachute where kids could trace their handprint and put their name inside. And we said it was for climate action for kids, and that we'll take it to all of our actions in the future. And so the kids were into that. And then we had like a break free from plastic, like picture frame, and we talked to kids about the importance of not using single-use plastic items. And we'll do all those things again at the next place where we'll have a table. Climate Reality gives you, I can't remember, it's like $200 a year or something like that. Yeah, Chris says yes. So you have $200 a year as a chapter to spend however you want. So the first $200 that we bought a beautiful tablecloth that says our chapter name on the front. So because we're going to have all those in-person events that never happened, but they're happening now outside. You know, people are starting to feel comfortable to do things outside. And it's great. It's great to be able to have that. So they're, you know, having lots of conversations is definitely one of the most important things, I'd say. And that counts as an act of leadership every time you have a conversation with somebody. So it's in there.
So I'll just note, I know we're running down to the bottom of the hour here. I'll note that I would be happy to pull names from our list for people in your areas. So I don't know how large you want to make your areas, but Judy, you know, whether you want to look at South Shore or just around East Bridgewater, Dennis, you're in Andover. Okay, I can pull names from there. And Amanda, whether you're thinking Lincoln or all of Metro West. Sherry, you're right next door in Arlington, so please don't take my Somerville friends from me. But if you must, you must. I understand.
Are you in Arlington?
I'm in Somerville.
Oh, okay, close enough.
Close enough. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and do that actually, and just at least for the four of you, and and pull some names and send them to you and see if you're interested. And if I know any of them in particular, I will indicate that so that you know that I'd be happy to make an introduction for you.
That sounds perfect. Thank you, Larry.
Larry, that would be really helpful. I was going to ask, like, how can we get that? I know that a lot of people don't go to the CRP website. Originally, that's what I tried to do when I came to Massachusetts. But just a quickie, you know, when I was first involved, I was an active member of the Sierra Club Energy Group, and we used to partner with them a lot to give these presentations, because one of the things I got from the Atlanta thing was that the primary goal that CRP is to go out and do presentations in public and try to persuade people. So these community actions are a lot more positive, I think, than what I think it originally was for. Because, you know, we were doing that the first year, and then we talked to politicians, and even up until the last day before New York closed to anything, we were talking to some of our local representatives. So we had a very active group of people, and then they were forming the chapter even as I was moving out of town. So it was kind of complicated, but it would be really helpful to start building relationships with these groups and other people who have been trained. And like Amanda, you know, not quite sure where to go next. So thank you, that'd be great.
Yeah, you got it.
And we'll also share this presentation out. And I know we're going to be getting new chapter members probably in the next week or so from the most recent training. So there may be some people who will watch this and then want to connect as well. So
thank you all very much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for all of this.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. This was fun.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you for the information.
Laura, you're an inspiration.
Nice to meet you.
Oh,
Really.
thanks,
Yeah,
Judy.
I'll say.
Nice to see you.
Thank
Bye.
you all.